So to get us kicked off, I've come up with a starter activity for you to do. So it's going to take us approximately 5 minutes. So if you could just take a minute to think about what politics means to you, and perhaps turn to the person next to you and discuss how your ideas differ to theirs. And then once you've had that discussion, if you could type your answers in the chat box. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. We've got some very interesting answers. So I believe politics is a range of opinions. Very good. The making of decisions within a government. Activities relating to the leadership of a country. Democracy. So politics is the activities associated with the governance of a country or area, especially the debate between parties having power. That's a very good one. I like that. Very detailed. Voting. Yes. Leaders of a country. People in power. Where we're able to debate and argue the best way forward. Okay, so got some very good answers. Some of them are quite similar, lots of references to government, people in charge, people in power. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again now, so you can see what I've got and how it compares to your answers. Okay, so this is what I've got. So I've got politics is decision making. So politics is how decisions are made about how a country is run. It includes laws, public services, and government policies that affect everyday life. I know lots of people mentioned how a country's run, so a lot of people got that point, definitely. And politics affects you and everybody every day as well. So, for example, the government decides how much schools, including your school, receive. They also set rules on public transport, healthcare, and taxes. And they also make decisions in relation to important issues such as climate change, crime, and employment. So, who is involved in politics? So, obviously, the most obvious answer is politicians, so the Prime Minister, MPs, and local councillors, but also the public as well. So, obviously, it's voters who decide which MPs are admitted to the House of Commons. And also, protesters and activists play a very active role in influencing government policy, particularly as the UK is a signatory of the European Convention on the Rights. European Convention on Human Rights. So obviously we have freedom of assembly and freedom to express oneself as well. So that's a paramount role in politics, definitely, and also institutions. So Parliament and political parties, which we will move on to discuss. Lobbyist organisations, so organisations that petition the government for a particular change in policy. Businesses as well, they play an active role, and also courts in the interpretation of acts of parliament, and also ensuring that the law is applied consistently across the board as well. Okay, so who's in charge? So the UK is a parliamentary democracy. Obviously, the UK is made up of lots of people, so it would be impossible for everybody to get together and discuss all the decisions affecting the country. Therefore, we appoint representatives to make decisions on our behalf. So this includes members of parliament, members of the Scottish Parliament, and members of the Welsh Parliament, which is also known as the Senedd, and also local councillors as well. The UK Parliament meets in London and is composed of three parts. So the first part is the House of Commons. So as I'm sure you might be aware from watching Prime Minister's questions, there's lots of green benches in the House of Commons, and your MP will sit on one of those if they're lucky. So although there's 650 MPs in the House of Commons, there's actually only around 430 seats. So not everybody will get a seat. Your MP will usually be affiliated with a political party, although there are a small number of independent MPs. So each political party will compete in elections every 5 years to gain as many of the 650 seats as possible. So the second component of the UK Parliament is the House of Lords. So unlike the House of Commons, Lords are not elected, and it also doesn't have a defined number of seats. And as of 10th of March 2025, it has 832 sitting members. 92 of these include hereditary peers, so people who've had their title handed down to them through generations. And there are also 26 Church of England bishops who have the right to sit. The rest of the members of the House of Lords are appointed by the King on the advice of the Prime Minister. So the final component is the Crown. So this is the monarch, who's currently King Charles III, who's the head of state and approves all laws through a process known as royal assent. The monarch has very limited political powers and is politically impartial. This means that they can't allow their personal judgment or personal views to cloud any advice they give to the Prime Minister. Whilst the monarch technically has the right to refuse royal assent, this does not generally happen, and the last such occasion was in 1708. So a bit of history there for you. So who's in charge continued? So the next component is the UK government. So if we think about how the UK government is formed, it becomes apparent why each political party competes so rigorously to gain seats in the House of Commons. Unlike other countries, such as Germany, Ireland and Belgium, an election does not take place to appoint a Prime Minister in the UK. Instead, the leader of the largest party automatically becomes the Prime Minister. This is known as negative parliamentarism. So obviously there's so much work involved in governing a country that the Prime Minister can't do it all himself, so he appoints what is called a cabinet. So he will select MPs from the House of Commons and also members of the House of Lords to become government ministers. And these ministers together are collectively known as the cabinet, and they have the power to make all UK government decisions. So I have another quiz here for you. So I'll give you again another 5 minutes. So if you can type your answers in the chat box. So number 1, how many cabinet positions can you name? And can you name any current cabinet members? So I'll give you 5 minutes to answer those 2 questions. So Treasurer, yes. Prime Minister. Oh, someone's named the Chancellor as well, Rachel Reeves, very good. Home Secretary, yes. Leader of the Opposition, very good. Health Executive, Health Secretary, yeah. Rishi Sunak, unfortunately, he's not in government at the moment. He was the last Prime Minister, but he's still a sitting MP. Ed Davey, yeah, he's the leader of the Lib Dems. Foreign Secretary, very good. John Healey, Ed Miliband, yeah, they're all in the cabinet. David Lammy, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, yeah. Very good. So it seems like people can name lots of positions, but people are a bit unsure on actually who's in cabinet. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen again. I've got the cabinet here, so you can have a look. So obviously a lot of people got Keir Starmer, the current Prime Minister. Nobody mentioned Angela Rayner from what I saw. She actually has 2 cabinet positions, so it's not unusual for that to happen. So she is Deputy Prime Minister and then also Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government. Quite a lot of people got Rachel Reeves. As people have said, she's Chancellor. So she holds the purse strings and decides which government departments receive how much of a budget. Yvette Cooper, I don't think anybody got her. She's the Home Secretary, so responsible for crime, policings, and the prison system. Ed Miliband, I did see him mentioned, So he's the Secretary of State for Energy, Security and Net Zero. So as some of you probably know, we've made a global commitment to reach net zero, to decarbonise every area of the UK economy by 2050. So he's responsible for meeting that target. David Lammy as well. I know that he was mentioned as the Foreign Secretary. Pat McFadden, he's of the Duchy of Lancaster. That is a very old role. So he's responsible for the UK government's estates, land ownership, any financial investments, and so on. So that's been a role that's been around for quite a long time. I think Shabina Mahmood was mentioned as well. She's the Secretary of State for Justice. So her role that varies from the Home Secretary in that she's responsible for UK courts and family law. Someone mentioned the Health Secretary as well. That's Wes Streeting. I don't think anyone mentioned Jonathan Reynolds, his business and trade. So yeah, so if you're interested in any of the cabinet members, if you go on the government website, you can see all these on there. Okay, so as part of the pre-session task, which hopefully you all received, I asked you to read an article on devolution. So if you could give me your best one-sentence summary of what devolution is in the chat box, that'll be brilliant. It was quite a detailed article that I asked you to read, but I thought that it set it out in a simple language, so I thought it was quite a good article. But please let me know what you think and whether you thought it was readable as well. So we got some very good answers. Transfer of power by central government to local stroke regional administrations. I don't think I could have put it better myself. Devolution is about how parliaments and governments make decisions. In the UK, it means that there are separate legislatures and executives in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Very good. When power is transferred to nations of the UK, yeah. To transfer power to local governments. Okay, so devolution involves transferring power from central government, so the UK government, to regional or local governments. So Tony Blair, that's a picture of him there. His government wanted to distribute some of the powers of the UK Parliament to Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. So in 1997, separate referendums, so votes, were held in Wales and Scotland, and both countries voted in favour of devolution. So that's when it happened in 1997. So quite recently, really, if you think about it. So the Scottish Parliament is based in Edinburgh. So I included a picture of a Scottish Parliament on the previous slide. So that's a Scottish Parliament there, and quite a modern building. The National Assembly for Wales, or the Senedd, is in Cardiff. The Northern Ireland Assembly, or Stormont, as it is commonly known as, is in Belfast, and it has a complicated history when it comes to running its own affairs and has faced multiple suspensions since its establishment in 1998 due to political disagreements. As I'm sure some of you are probably aware, if not all of you, historically the UK had to follow the laws made in Brussels by the European Union. However, this is no longer the case since our departure on the 31st of January 2020, so Brexit. But more recently, a number of mayoral posts have also been introduced in England with varying powers. So, for example, the London Mayor, who's currently Sadiq Khan, he can decide how much to spend and set priorities in some key areas. He can also determine London bus and tube fare prices and decide targets for affordable homes. So as well as the home nations, there's also devolution occurring in more regional and local authorities as well, such as London. Okay, so which powers are not devolved then? So these are known as the reserve powers. So Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland cannot make any decisions based on the UK Constitution, defence and national security, foreign policy, immigration and citizenship, and generally tax policy, although, as we will see, there are some exceptions. So in Scotland, the Scottish Parliament is responsible for many areas, including agriculture, forestry and fishing, education, environment, health, housing, justice, policing and courts, local government, some transport matters, some welfare matters, and some taxes, so income tax, stamp duty, and air passenger duty. In Wales, the devolved issues are roughly similar, except, as you'd expect, they also retain control over the Welsh language. In Northern Ireland, again, very similar, except they also control culture, language, and sport. If you're interested in learning more about the devolved powers, then I've also provided a link to an interesting BBC article as well. So elections, moving on to elections then. So there are two types of electoral system. The plurality system, this is a system in which the candidate who receives more votes than any other candidate wins, even if they do not secure an absolute majority. An example of this is the first past the post system, which is used here in the UK, as well as the US, Canada, India, and many Caribbean and African states. As some of you might be aware, and I know that this was also a question in the pre-session activity as well. In the UK in 2010, unusually, no party won an outright majority. So the Conservative Party had to invite the Liberal Democrats to join a power sharing agreement in the form of a coalition government. This is also known as a hung parliament. So if you hear that term, that's what it means when two separate parties have had to come together to form a government. So the second type of electoral system is known as proportional representation. So this is a system in which political parties receive seats in proportion to the number of votes they receive. So the representation reflects electoral support. So for example, if you're in a political party and you receive 35% of a vote, you will receive 35% of the seats in the legislature, which is the equivalent of the UK's House of Commons. So this is the most popular form of voting system worldwide, including in countries such as Belgium, Denmark, Israel, Norway, and Switzerland, to name a few. However, did you also know that Scotland uses proportional representation for electing MPs to the Scottish Parliament? So they use a system known as the additional member system, which is a mixture of both first past the post and also proportional representation. So if you're a resident of Scotland, you will have two votes, the first being for a constituency representative, which uses the first past the post system, but you also have another vote for a political party, which determines additional seats allocated proportionally. So I've got a video here for you to watch, specifically on the first past the post system, and also it mentions some weaknesses of the system as well. So it's only a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to share that with you.
Have you ever wondered how your vote counts in a general election? First off, you're not actually voting for a Prime Minister. Stick with me and I'll explain why. Instead, you're deciding who should represent you and your local area in Parliament. That local area is called a constituency, and there are 650 of them in the UK. Some are big, some are small, but each is made up of roughly the same number of voters, typically between 60 and 80,000. So, on election day, voters in each constituency choose one person from a list of candidates. Most of them are in a political party, but they don't have to be. The candidate with the most votes in each constituency wins. This system of voting is called first past the post, a term that comes from horse racing. All a candidate needs to be elected is to get more votes than any other candidate in their constituency. The winner then becomes a Member of Parliament, an MP. That means they get a seat in the House of Commons, where they can debate and vote on laws and check up on the government's work. But the seats are actually benches, and there's only space for about 430 of the 650 MPs to sit down at the same time. The way we elect our MPs explains why you hear a lot of talk about safe and marginal seats in the run-up to an election. A safe seat is one that a candidate from a certain party is likely to win. usually after they've been elected with a large majority last time. But a seat is never completely safe. Large majorities have been overturned. Now, a marginal seat is one where the result is likely to be much closer, and it's those marginal seats that are the most hotly contested during an election campaign. Okay, but what happens to your vote if you didn't back the winner? Put simply, nothing happens with it at all. At the last election, 14 million votes cast were for losing candidates. That's almost half of all the votes at that election. And what that means is that the share of votes each party gets on election day isn't the same as the number of seats it ends up with in Parliament. Take the 2015 general election. Conservative Party candidates got 37% of votes across the country, but it still ended up with over half the seats in Parliament. UKIP, on the other hand, only got 1 seat in the House of Commons, despite a national vote share of almost 13%. But whichever candidate does win on election day, they're supposed to represent everyone in their constituency, and not just the people who voted for them. So who gets to be Prime Minister then? That would usually be the leader of the party with the most MPs in Parliament. And what does the Prime Minister do? We'll leave that for another video.
Okay, so I thought that was quite interesting, particularly in setting out some of the weaknesses of the first past the post system. So that brings me on to our next slide, which again is a question for you. So what do you think the strengths and weaknesses of the first past the post system are? So again, I'll give you 5 minutes to have a think and type your answers in the chat box. So it doesn't represent full population. So a lot of people are saying that. Strengths allows the public to be involved. So strength is inclusive. Okay. A lot of people are saying that it's unrepresentative. Yeah, the percentage amount you get doesn't correlate to how many seats they get in Parliament. Strengths, strong government, yeah. As there is only one party. So some people's votes do not impact the final result. Yeah, that's a good one. Strengths usually returns one party creating strong government. Simple and easy to understand, yeah. Someone else got simplicity, yeah. That's a strength. And weakness will not allow smaller parties to represent their constituency. Yeah, that particularly affects independent MPs, I think. That's probably why there's so few of them. Pros, fair, people get a say, everybody is heard. Cons, minority of votes, not all votes lead to seats in Parliament. Yeah, okay, so I think everyone's roughly saying the same sort of thing. Okay, so again, I'm going to share my screen and I'll show you what I've come up with. So I'm not sure if anybody mentioned this one, but the possibility of a close MP constituency relationship is certainly a strength of this system. So obviously one representative is appointed for each constituency, and this usually means that there'll be strong community ties in the area and the MP will have a good understanding of what's going on in the community and what needs work. And it also is an advantage to voters in the sense that if they feel that their MP is not doing a good job, if they feel that they don't answer inquiries or that they're not seen around in the community, they can get rid of them at the next election. So a lot of people mention this as a strength. So one party strong government. So usually one party wins the election, which means that the winning party gets 5 years to deliver on its plans as highlighted in its manifesto before the election. And this means it's much easier to get policy through Parliament as well and prevents gridlock. So if you think of a lot of countries where they have a proportional representation and where there's several parties that almost have an equal share of the seats, it's much harder to get policy through because people tend not to agree on an issue. So that means that doesn't really benefit the country in the sense that you want to see change, you want things done, but obviously, you know, if a legislature's at stalemate, then that's unlikely to happen. Simplicity as well, that was a point that a few people mentioned. So the first past the post system, we've had it for such a long time, it's easy to understand and it's familiar with the British people. So in fact, voters were given a referendum, so a vote on whether to get rid of first past the post in 2011, but they chose to keep it. So that would imply that people are familiar with the system and it is quite popular. So disadvantages. So in most constituencies, more people in total vote against the winning candidate than for them. So sometimes an MP can be elected on a vote as low as only 35%. So obviously that's a lot less than half. And similarly, the winning party is usually elected by less than 50% of the overall vote. So in last year's election, in 2024, Labour won just 33.7% of the vote share, which is actually the lowest of any post-war government. So that begs the question, is that true democracy, really? So parties, particularly smaller parties, do not always gain fair representation. So for example, and this was highlighted in the video, in 2015, UKIP won 12.6% of the votes, but only won one seat. So 12.6 is quite a significant amount of a popular vote as well. And similarly, in 2019, Labour won 18%. So that's quite a bit of the vote in Scotland, but again, only won one MP. So it is argued that first past the post can encourage tactical voting as well, or alternatively, people not bothering to vote at all, as they think their vote will have little chance of helping the person they genuinely want to win. This is particularly true in safe seats, so where a party retains a significant majority, as people will find that there's little point in voting for the opposition party as they are unlikely to win anyway. So that can affect vote turnout. So a bit on UK political parties. So it might seem obvious, but I think when you've got to come up with a definition, it's much more difficult than you might think. So a political party is best described as a group of people who share similar ideas about how a country should be run. So political parties obviously want to be in government so that they can turn their ideas into law. And there are several different political parties in the UK. Some are UK-wide, such as the Conservatives and the Labour Party, whereas some are nationalist. So, for example, the Scottish National Party or the SNP, Plaid Cymru in Wales, and the Democratic Unionist Party or Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland. So some political parties are described as either left-wing or right-wing. I'm sure some of you have heard of that terminology before. It dates back to the 18th century, referencing the seating arrangements of the French Parliament. So that terminology has definitely been around for a long time. Alternatively, some political parties are described as being in the centre, so they're neither left nor right. So left-wing parties generally believe in equality, so they want all people to be given equal chances in life, and they feel that the UK government should help to facilitate this, usually through monetary support. Right-wing parties, on the other hand, believe in individual freedom and that the government should play a relatively small role in people's lives. Political parties in the centre support a balance of both left-wing and right-wing ideas, so they come in the middle. And most of the UK's main political parties, so the Labour Party, Conservative Party, Liberal Democrats, are based in the centre, but each lean in slightly different directions, so best described as the centre-left or the centre-right. The Labour Party, for example, is a centre-left party and believes that the government should do more to help those in society who are poorer or in need. The Conservative Party, also known as the Tories, I'm not sure if any of you have heard of the Tories before, but it's in reference to the Conservative Party. So they're a centre-right party and believe in smaller governments. So they favour policies that reduce taxes and allow more people to keep more of their money. But alternatively, they would probably be in favour of less welfare support as compared to the Labour Party. Okay, so moving on to the role of your MP. So the role of the MP is to represent all of their constituents. So this includes those who did not vote for them or those who did not vote at all. So that they're there to serve everybody. At the same time, however, backbench MPs, so those are MPs who do not hold a position in government, sometimes feel that they have a responsibility to support their political party as they help them to win the election. So if the UK government, for example, is trying to bring a particular policy and there's a vote on it, a lot of MPs, if they're affiliated with a particular party, will often vote with the government on that. And MPs represent their constituents in areas where the UK takes decisions. So that's all areas from housing, immigration, employment, and so on. So they can do this either by debating the issue, or they can ask questions in the House of Commons, either to the relevant government minister. So if it's a transport issue, then it would be the transport minister, or on a Wednesday at Prime Minister's questions. MPs can also work in smaller groups of MPs, and these are known as select committees, which are often set up to investigate a particular issue or to bring about change. So I've included a couple of photos there of a select committee on the right-hand side. As you can see, it's a relatively small group of individuals, and also on the left, there's somebody asking a question in the House of Commons. So MPs' duties are generally divided into parliamentary and constituency duties. So parliamentary duties include writing to or organising meetings with government ministers, speaking in Parliament during a debate, asking questions during PMQs, introducing members' bills on topics of concern to their constituents, lobbying organisations such as councils or health boards on behalf of their constituents, or raising the profile of an issue in the media, and becoming involved in committees, as I've mentioned, select committees, which scrutinise new legislation or question the work of the government. So constituency duties include communicating with constituents by writing letters, emails, speaking on the telephone, or holding surgeries, which are meetings where local people can voice their concerns or ask the MP for advice. A lot of MPs send out newsletters as well to their constituents to keep them updated on their activity. And MPs who are social media savvy as well may communicate with them via social media, or attend local meetings and events where they can discuss important issues that matter to their constituents. So I have another video here for you.
Are elected to represent their local constituents. I have over 70,000 people that I'm meant to look after. But that doesn't mean we have to agree with everything our constituents tell us. We have to make our own judgments. But of course, at the end of the day, a politician is elected to serve their local constituency. So of course, they have to represent the views of the people that elected them. Otherwise, they probably won't get re-elected.
Sometimes constituents, they hold very different points of view. I mean, I'm a Labour MP. There are lots of voters who are Conservative in the constituency. I don't necessarily agree with them, but to me it's very important that they understand that even though I may not share their viewpoint, I still represent them. And so it's very important to me that I also go and see them and make the case for why it is that I'm not going to vote a certain way that they want me to vote.
Presentation of public petition was Angela Eagle.
It reads, "To the Honourable the Commons of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland in Parliament assembled. The humble petition of Sarah Smith and students from schools across Wirral showeth that the petitioners believe that the government's abolition of the educational maintenance allowance and the proposals to lift the cap on university fees will prevent students from poorer backgrounds having full and fair access to education."
MPs are there in order to take the views of their local people to the national level, and with those from other areas, is to combine in both creating legislation and attempting as best we can to represent the national interest.
So you might have wondered who your MP is and how you contact them. So I just wanted to bring your attention to the UK Parliament website as to how you can do that. So I've provided a link here. So if you type that in your browser, then the UK Parliament has a nice facility where you can find your own MP. So I'm going to use my postcode, click search, and I can see here that my MP is Layla Moran. She's a Liberal Democrat. There's a picture of her there. The name of my constituency is Oxford West and Abingdon. If you click that as well, so if you want to get in touch with them regarding a parliamentary issue, so a policy issue, If there's something that the government's doing that you don't agree with, you could write to her or ring or email. Alternatively, if it's a constituency issue, so I don't know, if you're relying on public transport and they take a bus off and you want to contact them about that, then also there's details of the constituency office as well. So I thought that it was useful to bring that to your attention in case you ever wanted to contact your own MP. You might also wonder, how do you get involved in politics? So I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but there's actually a UK Youth Parliament that was established in 1999, which is made up of over 300 young people aged between 11 and 18 that are elected, the same as MPs, as members of the Youth Parliament to represent their peers. So I've included a link there as well, where you can find out more, and there's a picture as well of somebody speaking in the Youth Parliament, which is the same with the House of Commons. They do it from there as well. So it's exciting if you get put forward and you can go there and speak in the House of Commons. And I think there's a lot that you can get involved in your own area as well. So your school council, for example, that's an example of politics at a local level. You're representing your peers to bring about change, or if there's an idea that you think that your school would benefit from, then that's certainly the platform there that you can join. And also there's a lot of your main political parties, I know the Conservatives, the Lib Dems, Labour Party, they all have youth wings as well, that you can join. Sometimes it's free, other times it's for a very nominal fee, so not very much at all. You can join the youth wing, and they also hold events and different things where you can get involved in politics. And then I've also put a link to an information booklet as well, that includes some other ideas where you can get involved in politics. And then I think other things that you can do as well. I know that on a Sunday morning, Laura Koomsberg, she does a show as well, political show. That's good to watch. And then just watching the news, really, that'll keep you up to date on current affairs and what's going on in Parliament.